The Bengals don't trade up or down. They stay put right where they were, and they get Myles Murphy, the edge rusher out of Clemson, breaking a 20-plus year precedent of not taking a defensive lineman in the first round. But here we are, breaking it down for you. Welcome into a special post-draft podcast edition of the Strictly Stripes podcast. Mohammad Ahmad, Mike Niziolek, and Andrew Gillis burning that oil after hours at approximately 1:30 a.m. on this Friday. So obviously it's been a late night for everyone. So we will keep this as thorough and tight as possible for tonight. But I mean, guys, we talked about, will the Bengals buck history and, do something they haven't done really since 2001. That's how long it's been since they got a D lineman that early. I mean, when you saw the Bengals were on the clock and you knew it was going to come down to him, Michael Mayer, Nolan Smith, and amazingly Joey Porter Jr., I mean, did you guys think in your all's minds that Murphy was the guy? Like, were you just right then and there, like, that's who they need to get?
Well, I think early on, you kind of started to get the sense that things could get a little weird. Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, the Lions played a big part in this. So, Jahmyr Gibbs going 12th, I don't think anybody saw that. I think we had this debate on the pod. Do you take Jahmyr Gibbs if he's there at 28? That is where things kind of started to turn. Darnell Wright goes 10th. That was a little bit earlier. So things started to change a little bit. Will McDonald went earlier than some people thought. Jack Campbell sneaks into the top 20 when nobody really thought that was possible. So, Mozzie Smith, 26. You start to get down the list. And, I mean, they had some really good names on the board and names that we talked about. We obviously mentioned Myles Murphy before they took him. And we also mentioned Brzee. We mentioned Michael Mayer. He wasn't picked. It just – to me, as you got closer to it, there were like three options, maybe four, actually probably four options: Murphy, Brzee, Mayer, and Joey Porter Jr. And you need a pass rush. We talked about this on the pod that their pass rush was not good enough last season, and now you go get a guy who's young, who's coming out of college with kind of room to grow and room to kind of develop. So. Yeah, I think that this was kind of a nice situation for the Bengals. You get, a player that, frankly, I didn't think was going to be there. I think Mike kind of mentioned that on the other pod that, he didn't think Murphy was going to be around, and he was, and the Bengals made that pick. So, yeah, I thought it was a really good pick. But, when you get to, like, 20, 24 and you can start to kind of whittle down the names, you could kind of get a sense that there was going to be somebody there that they liked.
Well, the best thing that probably happened to him was the Lions taking Campbell and then the run on receivers. That probably, because I look back on it when I was writing today, and basically after McDonald was taken, Myles Murphy and Nolan Smith, probably depended on the board, were the next pass rusher up. So essentially, if somebody was interested, he would have been the guy. And so, I think Zach Taylor kind of said they were kind of sweating there when it got down to it because, there's about 13 picks there between that, and that I think that was a long stretch, especially for a pass rusher. When a lot of those guys I think that were impact guys already off the board, and there was only a couple left. So I think it kind of developed perfectly for them. I thought there was only a few scenarios where, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they were saying that they weren't going to necessarily draft a tight end, but that they would pass up on Mayer just because he seemed like the perfect fit, and this was one of them. I thought Myles Murphy was a terrific fit for this team the entire time, a guy that could rush off the edge and lose system, that had kind of freak athleticism. His testing got delayed, and that might have helped the Bengals. I'm not really sure, how that played a role in kind of his thing. He was dealing with a hamstring injury, couldn't test at the combine, only did the bench press, couldn't test at Clemson's original pro day, had to reschedule it later. So, everything kind of worked out for them, didn't have to trade up to get a talent that at one time, was talked about as a top 10 pick. And there was nothing that really kind of came up in the draft process that would really alter that evaluation other than people getting, maybe more information on other guys and they like him more. But, I don't think Murphy was any different of a player than he was 3 months ago when he had that evaluation.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And